One artist hopes his work makes a lasting impression, while another creates work he expects to disappear. We've got both of those stories in today's edition of CNN Student News. I'm Carl Azus. The scene, United Nations headquarters located in New York. The players, the UN General Assembly. This is kind of like a student body meeting where everyone's allowed to take the mic and talk priorities. President Obama was one of the first speakers yesterday. He outlined what he called 4 pillars that he believes are important to the world's future.
Non-proliferation and disarmament, the promotion of peace and security, the preservation of our planet, and a global economy that advances opportunity for all people.
Okay, controversial Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad got a tough reception. During his speech, a number of groups actually got up and walked out in protest of Iran's policies. Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi spent more than an hour and a half covering a boatload of international subjects while hammering U.S. policies and the UN Security Council. Now, don't get the Security Council confused with the General Assembly. They have the same goal, to work toward peace and international cooperation. But if the General Assembly is like a student body with all 192 members, the Security Council's like the Student Council with 15 UN members. And it's that council that has the main responsibility for maintaining world peace. That might include anything from sending peacekeeping troops into troubled areas, to punishing member countries that break United Nations rules, to helping negotiate an end to international disputes. Well, that's what Brazil is asking for, an emergency meeting of the Security Council to discuss the situation at the Brazilian embassy in Honduras involving José Manuel Zelaya. He was removed from the Honduran presidency in June, but Zelaya returned to his country on Monday. He's staying inside the Brazilian embassy because if he leaves, he could be arrested. The Honduran government cut off water, power, and phone lines to the building earlier this week. The country's current leader says he's willing to meet with Zelaya, but it won't affect the charges facing Zelaya, charges of trying to change Honduras' constitution.
Time for the shout-out. Eric Holder is the head of what U.S. government agency? You know what to do. Is it the Education Department, Justice Department, Federal Reserve, or CIA? You've got 3 seconds. Go! As Attorney General, Holder heads up the Justice Department, which is responsible for enforcing U.S. law and protecting the American people. That's your answer, and that's your shout-out.
The Justice Department says its top priority is protecting America against acts of terrorism. An ongoing investigation by the department is focused on that subject. As we reported this week, 3 men are in custody charged with lying to federal agents. Someone familiar with this investigation says it's looking at about a dozen suspects. Samantha Hayes checks in with the latest details.
Authorities say more arrests may be coming in a widening U.S. terror investigation. At the center of the investigation, 3 men charged with lying to federal agents. Najibullah Zazi, his father, and Muslim cleric Ahmed Afzali were arrested over the weekend in what the Justice Department has said was a plot to detonate bombs in the United States. They have all denied the allegations. Afzali, who authorities say had been working with the FBI, is accused of trying to tip off Zazi that he was being monitored, a claim his lawyer denies.
The authorities generally requested that the imam find out any way he can where Zazi is, where he's been, where he's going, and what he is up to. That's what they wanted to know. And that makes sense, because they thought he was coming to New York for the purpose of carrying out a terrorist attack.
All 3 suspects are from Afghanistan and were in the United States legally. A former CIA officer says that's troubling.
And this is our nightmare. I mean, the military would call this having somebody inside the wire. He doesn't need to go through immigration. He doesn't need to go through customs, although they probably noticed him traveling to Pakistan.
While there is no information regarding the specific timing, location, or target of any alleged attacks, there are still concerns, and that's prompted the Department of Homeland Security to issue new warnings about the vulnerability of so-called soft targets.
We worry about transportation hubs, subways, buses, that sort of thing.
Moving to a different kind of investigation now, where officials in California trying to determine what started a wildfire in Ventura County. The Giberson Fire, named after the road where it started, has been burning for a couple days now, threatening around 1,000 homes. More than 800 firefighters were battling the blaze yesterday, and officials estimate the fight has already cost more than $1 million. Well, yesterday afternoon, the wildfire was about 20% under control. Authorities said they hope to have it fully contained by Saturday morning. On the other side of the country, floodwaters are starting to go back down in Georgia, allowing some major roads to be open and giving us residents a chance to start a long recovery process. The severe weather claimed at least 9 lives in the state. As of Tuesday afternoon, hundreds of people were still living in shelters. One official estimates that the flooding cost around $250 million in damages. Despite a second day of dry skies, parts of Georgia remained under flood warnings yesterday.
Today's shout-out extra credit goes out to Mr. Anders' business classes at Green Valley High School in Henderson, Nevada. What organ in the human body produces insulin? Is it the liver, kidneys, spleen, or pancreas? Another 3 seconds. Go. Your pancreas makes insulin, which helps control the level of sugar in your bloodstream. That's your answer, and that's your shout-out extra credit.
When your body doesn't process that sugar correctly, usually because there's a problem producing insulin, it's a medical condition called diabetes. 1 in every 300 teens has the disease, and one of them just happens to be a famous musician. As Dr. Sanjay Gupta tells us, the singer is hoping his music can strike a chord with other young diabetics.
He's a rock star who sings about life, love, and diabetes. 17-year-old Nick Jonas, youngest of the famous Jonas Brothers, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 4 years ago.
I lost 15 pounds in a total of about 3 weeks.
Nick's song is aimed at helping teens with diabetes who can feel stigmatized.
Having anything different, and particularly a chronic illness, sets you apart, and many of these teenagers feel it.
Nick is also a paid spokesperson for Bayer, which makes a device for monitoring blood glucose levels.
You enter the blood sugar here.
He watches what he eats, he wears an insulin pump, and checks his blood sugar 10 to 12 times a day. But at times, his brothers do have to cover for him.
There have been times where I've had them stretch out, they're talking so that I can have a little bit more time to take care of a low blood sugar.
Once his readings are healthy again, he gets back to doing what he loves.
I think just the fact that I can say, look, you're just like everybody else. You can do what you want to do, and you can do it with diabetes. That's the best thing in the world.
All the highs and lows are gone. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN, reporting.
They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but that eye better be quick if you're checking out one artist's work. His efforts to showcase his creativity are also a race against the clock. Relitza Vasileva draws up details.
Now you see it, now you don't. These unique works of art were made to disappear, and the American artist behind them is Andres Amador. He discovered this art form playing around with a walking stick. Now Amador's paintbrush is a rake. His canvas, San Francisco's coastline.
Ocean Beach so far has been the best beach that I've found to do this work. It's big, it's relatively shallow, flat.
Low tide is when he goes to work.
And the space between the high tide and low tide is when my canvas appears.
No matter how intricate his geometric sand designs, high tide sweeps them all away.
I would be in mid-making it, and a wave would come through and half of it would wash away in an instant, and there's no way to recover it because the tide is coming back.
But the tide can take away the photograph that preserves the memory of Amador's art. Relitza Vasileva, CNN, Atlanta.
Good stuff. And it makes for a tidy ending to today's show. We'll see you back here tomorrow for our 20th anniversary celebration. I'm Carl Azuz for CNN Student News.